welcome to Two Bid SoCon. I am Jack Gold, joined as always by Matt St. Charles on a beautiful SoCon Saturday. New sort of announcement type thing we're going to start trying to do is we're going to start trying to record the night of the game so we can have the episodes out the next morning. Most of the time that will probably be Wednesday nights. Occasionally, if it's just a dud of a night, we'll push it to Saturday night. Or if we're both busy, things happen. I guess more things for Matt. I'm currently unemployed still, so we'll see. But Matt, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. I just got a fun little experience watching Chat with their butts handed to them against Samford, but it was a fun one to cover.
That's the truth, man. It was about as bad as it gets in that one, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. But first, let's start off with probably the most notable result of the night, which was Wofford taking down Western Carolina 88-86 in overtime. Sure, you didn't get to watch it too closely being at the Chat game. And I can tell you, actually, I know you probably couldn't because I was sitting at home, TV. So I had the Western Carolina Wofford game on the big TV. I had ETSU Citadel and Samford Chattanooga split on my laptop. And at the same time, Chattanooga was going on the big run to start the second half. We're like, oh, is this going to become a game? Western Carolina and Wofford was about to go to overtime, and ETSU and the Citadel was sitting there last minute of that game. And I'm trying to I think it's that SpongeBob meme where he's looking like 17 different ways. That was me. Like I could not. I was watching all three, and actually, my mom was out somewhere, and she came in and started talking to me and asking me questions, and I was like,
get out, Mom.
No, I can't focus on anything else right now. Like I've got 17 games I'm watching all at once. So yeah, I know you didn't get to watch that one super closely, but went to overtime after a crazy little finish there where Wofford had the ball, chance to win it in regulation. Corey Tripp turned it over.
Oh yeah, and
And
Trey Jackson
Charles
shot a
Lampton
half
picked it
court.
up, hit Trey Jackson. Yeah, he took a half quarter with like 3 seconds left. And Russell Jones Jr. was wide open, which, I mean, I don't blame him. It was a hectic play, but it kind of did mess him up there. But I think the main takeaway, then they ended up winning in overtime off a Vontarius Woolbright missed shot. I think the main takeaway for me is we don't talk enough about Corey Tripp. Corey Tripp
There it is.
He's one of the most underrated, and we do talk about him, but like
I had him
he is
on my
so
also
good, dude. Yeah, you did. He is so good, man. And it's crazy. It's every game he's hitting big shots in the clutch. You should have seen a few of the shots. For those listening, if you didn't watch it, some of the shots he hit in the clutch, like a fadeaway, mid-range floater type look over Russell Jones. I mean, he hits tough shots, and as clutch as they get, he had 27 and 6. That was my main takeaway. He's been awesome, Matt. You picked him for all SoCon. What have you thought about him this year?
Yeah, he's been great. It just feels like, every time that offense maybe hits a lull or something like that, he's always the guy to hit some kind of shot to get them out of it. My favorite part about tonight is he had 27 on 13 of 17. He shot 2 threes, made one of them that was in overtime, I'm pretty sure. If not, it was at the end of regulation. But he shot 0 free throws. I mean, that's just pure buckets.
That's
He's just
ethical
been
hoops.
on a tear lately. But for them overall, 5 home SoCon wins by a combined 16 points, and 10 of those came against Furman. I don't know how sustainable that will continue to be, but I mean, I guess we just keep saying that, and they keep winning at home when they have to. That game just sort of makes me a little concerned about Western Carolina, more than confident in Wofford, I guess, but I'm still probably going down on the Western Carolina ship as it goes.
Yeah, so I got thoughts on Western Carolina. I'll get those in a second. But I do want to talk about Wofford more. And one of them is Corey Tripp's on the short list for Player of the Year next year, I think, easily.
Oh, okay.
If he makes any development at all. And hand in hand with that is, and something that I've said before, they're going to be good next year. I think Jackson Civils has looked really good lately. I think Kyler Filowich is good. He's got another year. Dylan Bailey's good. Chance Cormier's good. I'm trying to think. I'm totally forgetting all the players. They just have so many, a little bit like the Citadel does. Completely different players, but like where they just have a ton of like similar good players. And they're all young. So I'm really, really impressed. And they just like fight to stay in every game. It's almost, when do they get blown out? Chattanooga, that's pretty much it. I mean, they just have impressed me by, I don't feel like that is a slight. I don't feel like they belong in that top tier of team. And that's not a slight at them. It's more of a talking about how good the rest of the SoCon is or the upper echelon of it is. But they stay in games and make people think they do that don't watch, don't watch it, maybe watch the league quite as hard as I do, where I kind of know, they're probably not going to do a whole lot. But yeah, and then on Western Carolina, they just got to get help from the bench, dude. They really get nothing out of that bench, and it's also a Charles Lampton problem still. He is a shot effector at the rim, and yeah, that's about it. That's like it's just a tough situation. Colin Granger hasn't gotten nearly. I think Colin Granger was probably even better last year than he's been this year. I just don't know. It's got to be Bernard Pellote maybe, but it can't. As crazy as it sounds, I don't know if it can always be just Woolbright, Jones, and Jackson. And because Jackson is definitely always going to have some inefficient nights. That's just his play style, unless he becomes just Steph. His shot selection and things like that, it's just tougher to be uber efficient like that. And DJ Campbell's awesome too. But even then, it can't just be those four guys. That's all. Like, those are the only four offensive threats out there. Bernard Pellote's good for a 3 here and there, and that's it. And those guys are going to have to play 40 minutes a night almost to win a lot of games. And I think that's part of why they've come up short so many times. What do you think about them?
Yeah, I think, teams are honestly starting to realize that Vontarius Woolbright is going to get his. Like, at the end of the chat game on Wednesday, they just, they were playing the foul game, and the chat just kept opening the door and letting him walk to the rim to like get layups. So they just kept trading twos. Like, everybody knows that Woolbright is going to get his, but if you can contain the other guys and honestly keep Woolbright's assists down and, force Trey Jackson in tough jumpers and things like that, then you have a better chance of beating them than, trying to take the ball out of Woolbright's hands and instead of just letting him score his 30 or whatever it's going to be. But, 1-5 now in their last 6, I just don't know what to expect from this team because they've had 3 big games at home with Greensboro, Samford, and Chat, and they lost all of them. So now they're going to have to go on the road for all those games down the stretch, and it's going to be tough for them to climb back up the standings because they've dug themselves in this hole.
Yeah, it's kind of, and a side note there too is Woolbright's Player of the Year case, safe? And he's not doing anything to hurt it. But it's like, if they keep losing and they finish in the middle of the SoCon, are you going to take him over Mikal Brown-Jones?
I was going to say, if Brown-Jones goes for, 25 plus tomorrow and Greensboro wins, he honestly might be the favorite if you look at it real closely.
It's hard to say that too, because since that matchup where, he went for Brown-Jones went for 39 and Woolbright went for 34, since that matchup, Woolbright has gone for 18-13, 36-8, and 28-10. But 6 games, 5 losses. It's just like, at the end of the day, if they keep falling down the standings, which I don't think they'll do, but they keep losing close games. Like I tweeted out that they're now 6 games, 1-5, and their point differential is +7. That's how close all the games have been. Now they did blow out VMI in one game. Right. But that also was affected a little bit by Chattanooga beat them by like 6, and that wasn't necessarily a blowout or anything. That was a close game. Yeah, I don't know. I thought about that today watching that game because I thought for sure, almost like you did with Chattanooga, Western Carolina, where you didn't pick you didn't pick Chattanooga because you didn't think they would lose another one. Today with Wofford, I was thinking hard. I wanted to pick Wofford bad just because you had the same exact picks as I was going to pick, and I was like, do I want to be different? Like, I do kind of think Wofford's got a shot. And I was, at the end of the day, I was like, no, I can't do that. They're just too solid of a team. I can't see them dropping this many, and they keep on. And it's just a weird collapse because it's not really a collapse.
Right.
They've got some problems, but they've lost 1-5. Any other team goes 1-5, and we're probably really worried about them. But me and you both, I think we both would not be surprised at all if they still go on and win the SoCon and SoCon tournament. Like that's not out of the realm of possibilities at all. But man, yeah, I don't want to overreact because they keep losing these games so close, but at the same time, they keep losing these games, and it's getting something that's a real concern and almost baffling to a point.
Yeah, like I said, I'm still comfortable going down on the Western Carolina ship. Like, if I had to bet, like, I would not bet on them to finish below 500 or anything like that. I wouldn't bet on them to finish as, a bottom 4 seed. And if they can get it right, Will Bright is probably going to run away with Player of the Year. So if those two things, go together, I mean, I feel they're going to get it right at some point.
Yeah, I think they're too old to not, just as their core, but we'll see. We'll move on. Secondly, really the biggest game coming into the night, number 1 versus number 2 in the SoCon, or tied for number 2 in the SoCon. Samford came to Chattanooga, beat the crap out of them in that first half, especially 78-56 was that 22-point win. No real standouts in my opinion. It was just
good old
just
fashioned
Chattanooga, in my opinion. I mean, they really looked. They went from the Western Carolina, which I guess we haven't covered. Chattanooga took down Western Carolina on Wednesday, and probably the most impressive performance of the season. And that's part of why we both picked them. I know for sure they're playing great basketball, and then they turn around with one of the worst halves of basketball they played all year easily. Just looked horrible, and I didn't feel like Samford was playing great in the first half either. And in the second half, I don't think Samford played all that great either. I think it was a lot of, and maybe we can credit their defense, but at the same time, I thought they got really, really 3 happy. Especially that Chattanooga made a big run to cut it to 8 with probably 13 minutes left. It was a crazy run to start the half, and then they just got tough shot happy. Huff taking off dribble threes, little contested. Bonham doing his thing where Bonham does take crazy shots and Huff does too, and you live with those. But I thought the team as a whole just got a little too committed to the 3, which is a funny thing to say about a Dan Earl team because that's really what they are. But they almost got too committed to a point where I know Dan was probably upset with it too. You were at the game. You cover the team. You're probably writing about it. What were your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, the biggest story coming into this one was, a couple hours before the game, it comes out Jermaine Marshall is going to be active, and we're like, you texted and we're like, do you want to change your Chat Samford pick? Like, it's not too late. And with the second chance to change our pick, neither of us did. So like, I feel like Samford has heard all of this noise about how hot Chat is and all this kind of stuff, and it really looked like they kind of took that personally, especially early. Um, one of the biggest takeaways in this one was Sam Alexis was not great, and he tried to get it going early on, and then when it didn't, he just became kind of passive. He had all these opportunities just one-on-one with Achor, and Achor had 4 blocks, and 3 of them were probably on Sam Alexis, just one-on-one in the post. Like Alexis or Achor just kept getting the better of him. And then there was like 2 or 3 times where Nathan Johnson just took Sam Alexis to the rack from the left wing going right and just scored a layup over him. And at that point I was like, it's just not Sam Alexis's night.
Shout out Nathan Johnson. He's a dude.
He is a dude.
By the way,
he nailed some big shots in that game. But he's more of a catch and shoot guy. He's not taking maybe defensive player of the year Sam Alexis to the rim like that. For the most part, Jermaine Marshall was just break glass in case of emergency. It looked like he didn't play any close minutes in that game. All of them, I think Samford had a double-digit lead or something like that, which just kind of tells you how scary Samford may be, especially when he gets all the way back. And, now it's kind of looking like it's going to be hard for Samford not to win the league now after winning tonight, because they've got a 1-game lead on UNCG still, but they're playing one less game. I was super impressed all night with the coaching of Bucky McMillan. He was, the Dan Earl and Honor Huff talked after the game about how difficult it is to prepare for this Samford team, because, first of all, you never know who's going to come out and give you 15, and you don't know who's going to get hot and all this stuff. And then on top of that, you got to prepare for the press and all this stuff. And McMillan just started every possession switching his defense. He would go from man, he would go into a 2-3, he would go in a 1-2-2, and Chat did not know what to do. Every time they came down the floor, you could just tell they were having to think so much. They were second guessing a lot of themselves, and Dan Earl kind of took the blame for that and said, he didn't have the guys ready to adjust. And then another thing McMillan did was every time Jan Zedek came into the game, he would see Jan Zedek sitting at the scorer's table, and whichever of Achor or Jermaine Marshall wasn't in the game, he would sub them right in, and they would basically be like, go at Jan Zedek. It didn't work all night, but it kind of worked most of the night. For Chat, the best player for them in that game may have been Miles Che. They went with a 3-guard lineup again. That seems to have been working for them. And, breaking that press, he was the main guy handling the ball, and he didn't turn the ball over too much. I didn't even know that he did at all. Let me look at the stat book real quick. He didn't turn the ball over. So he was, the main catalyst. He was the main catalyst in that second half run, because Chat started doing the same thing Samford was doing to Jan Zedek, but they were doing it to Dallas Graziani. And whether it was Che or Bonham or Huff, whoever Graziani was on, they just went at him. And then, they get close and Miles Che goes down. It looked like he was cramping. I don't know what it was. It doesn't look serious. And then the run just died. Like, they couldn't get anything else going. Last thing, shout out Jermaine Marshall for attempting to establish this, I'm pretty sure. But he took the Chat Power C after the game, and he did Power C down. I think he's trying to start a little horns down thing over there for when you beat Chat, but I don't know how much that'll catch on.
I'm not sure that I'm Power C down. Like, I don't know. I feel like horns is up, throw it, and you throw it down. Do a backwards Power C. Like, let's do backwards Power C.
Also, I will say,
beat Chattanooga, you throw it backwards.
All I'll say is, walking around campus every day, I never see somebody actually throw up the Power C. The Power C is like only an old alumni thing. I never see it anymore.
Might be facts.
I don't know how much that'll catch on.
Yeah, no, you might be right. And so I've got thoughts on UTC, which is funny. I had a bunch written down before the game that I wanted to talk about because they've looked so awesome. And I think it all revolves around the role guys with Miles Che, like we talked about, which is really, you leave encouraged about him. He's been big, and maybe it is, he does have freshman tendencies in that, like, he turns the ball over a lot, makes some bad decisions, probably trying to look a little too cool out there all the time. Just, you can tell. And the stuff he'll mature, as he matures and learns more about the game and how it goes in college, he'll figure those things out. But I do think another thing, for you mentioned this, and credit to you mentioned this way before, whenever Bonham was eligible, like, how is he going to respond to not starting? And I don't know, I thought he was already on the decline, but I don't know that he responded well to not starting. And this uptick in his production has came pretty much from the exact moment he started starting again. And, maybe that's the solution. I do think that's the solution, honestly. That's not a great look, and that maybe it doesn't have effect on him. But regardless, I do like that lineup, starting all three of them. And I think that's clearly led to better play from him, as well as I think Tyler Millen has played better. I didn't do a whole lot today.
He
And
did not play a lot tonight. He
yeah,
started, and I think he played like 8 minutes or something like that. I don't. He got buried on the bench. I think Dan liked a lot of what Randy Brady was doing, especially defensively, because Demetrius Davis played like 2 minutes too. So I mean, he really got in with Randy Brady and Jan Zedek for the most part.
yeah, I thought that was interesting. And in saying that, I was at the point, I will admit this right now, that I was at the point of why does Randy Brady ever play? Now I think Randy Brady's a good dude, but this was, a few weeks ago, he was just out there. I mean, he legit was just getting cardio in and maybe
Hmm.
getting some boards. Now he's shooting threes and he's making them. I've seen a couple good moves. He's still, I can give you the scouting report on Randy Brady drives for the past 3 years now. He's going up with two hands every time. He's probably got to fix that. But either way, he's a strong dude. He can defend well. I think he did good against Montarius Woolbright. He did decent against Jermaine Marshall at times. And if he's out there defending, rebounding, and most importantly, shooting threes, I feel like he's been hesitant. But the past few games, he's looked, he's knocked down threes. If he can do that, he can play. And then same with Jan Zedek, who's really found a role recently of just shooting it about every time he catches it on catch and shoot threes. That's big for them. I already mentioned about how I hated their shot selection, but at the same time, you got to remember Chattanooga last year got swept by Samford. I can't say I hate that they got swept for Chattanooga just because if they had, Samford's won comfortably 2 times now, and Chattanooga's almost won 2 of the 4 halves they played. I think they barely
Mm.
lost the first half they played in the first game. But in saying that, I don't think these two teams, when they're both playing well, are just miles apart. Like the point
Oh yeah.
differential is probably in the 20s, 30s. And I
Hmm.
think that helps, a Chattanooga team if they get up against Samford, because now they're not going to play them unless they play them in the tournament. I think that helps them because Samford may be comfortable, Chattanooga may be hungry, and they also, it's not just this team beat us twice and we're hungry, but that team's way better than you. I think it's a closer matchup than the scores can show. Then I'll go on to Samford. I haven't been impressed with Samford, and this is not like a shot at them. And this is impressive, I guess, by Bucky McMillan and the players that they keep winning some games. I've thought since that loss to Furman, they've looked fairly underwhelming. And even tonight, I didn't think they didn't overly impress me with how they're playing. They don't look like necessarily the same team. I thought Achor handled the matchup with Sam Alexis well, but I don't think Achor's playing at the level he played at earlier in the year, nor is AJ State and McCray. Now Jaden Campbell played
Mm.
well today.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's maybe even a thing, like, if they're beating a team that we thought, which Chattanooga played horrible, if they're handling teams still, it's scary. But in saying all that, if Achor can figure things out, especially offensively, he kind of got punked against ETSU the other day when they came out with that win. If he can figure things out, is there a single team in the SoCon that can guard Achor, how he was playing a few weeks ago, and Jermaine Marshall? I'm not sure. And Jermaine Marshall's got to get to 100%. And I was kind of skeptical coming into the game about Jermaine Marshall because that's a quick recovery from a meniscus. And I was
Hmm.
like, I hope he's not rushing to be out there. He's got a brace on his knee. I never like seeing a brace on the knee because I know when my knee felt good, I would
Broke
play without
body.
a brace, but my knee never
Yeah.
felt good. I would have to put a brace on. But I'm interested to see if he gets to 100%. And I was kind of scared about that because I was like, I hope he's not rushing back. But at the same time, you can just play a little bit in the Bucky system and play hard for that little bit and still make an impact. And it's almost like every other school would need him. Like you gotta
Right.
play big minutes, and there, he can still make a good impact like he did tonight, playing a little bit of minutes and continue to ramp up over the year. And he's going to be a guy that, you know, if they get him playing like he was playing, at the end of last year, a Chor playing like he was a few weeks ago, AJ State McCray playing like he did early in the season, um, it could be wraps. And I'm not probably quite as um, sold on it being over, but I do think they've got, maybe the highest ceiling in all of the SoCon and the most momentum to get to that ceiling at this
Yeah.
point in time.
Yeah. If you add, how well Jaden Campbell played onto that list of what you just said,
Exactly. I didn't see him.
that would be tough for a team in the NCAA tournament, let alone, another SoCon team.
And we didn't even mention Rylan Jones. So yeah, they've got just good
They got
players.
dogs.
And
They got dogs.
they've got a good chance at being really good this year. Into the postseason. We'll go on to ETSU and the Citadel. ETSU scraped away 62-60. Once again, game, either the ETSU or the Citadel plays, and you set back basketball a few years. Then they played each other offensively. And I don't even know that I want to talk about the result quite as much, more than I just want to talk about the teams. I want to talk about the Citadel first and really shout out Ed Conroy, because I don't think we've talked about this enough, the job he's done there this year. Because if you think, and I think I need to go back and look at you look up the Citadel on my phone, like on my tweets. But if you look at the situation Ed Conroy had coming in, or like in the offseason this year, when all the guys that transferred, and then Stephen Clark transferred, and I'm totally forgetting the guy's Ash. I can't remember I'm forgetting his first name. I don't want to hate. He was kind of a forgettable player a little bit, but he put up points. He could still produce in the SoCon enough. But they had nobody coming into this year. It's really like Madison Durr was like the one guy that you're like, oh, that's a guy to build on, and AJ Smith. And they're just out there. They just got dogs. They're out there competing. Shout out Quentin Malora Brown. Doesn't get enough credit as being probably one of the best bigs in the SoCon, maybe because he doesn't have that bag like everyone else does. But dude just plays hard, and he gets boards, and he randomly dunks on people like every game. And I did tweet out, I was hoping I'd hit Vandy Twitter. I don't think this tweet made it to Vandy Twitter because I got buddies in their media. But a certain team in Nashville could use Quentin Malora Brown right now, and maybe this is a SoCon, two-bid SoCon scoop. If anyone on here listens to, or pays attention to Vandy and listens, Vanderbilt ran Quentin Malora Brown out of town last year. And granted, I watched Quentin Malora Brown at Vanderbilt, and he was not an SEC caliber big, but that man played hard, and he was a body that went out there and gave it his all. But in the NIT, they played Michigan, and Hunter Dickinson ate him alive. You knew he wasn't going to be able to win matchups with top bigs, but he was going to go out there and he's going to give everything he had. And I consistently said about Vanderbilt last year, they got to get a better big next year. Malora Brown can't be your number one guy, but he definitely could be a number two. And Vanderbilt's running with a 6'9" big out there, and he's their only option at big. And they could 100% use that guy, a guy that they legitimately. I don't think enough people realize that he was running out of town. I know that I know things that they did tell him, hey, you should go somewhere else, because he's coming back. He's going back to Vanderbilt after this year to finish his master's. He didn't want to leave that school. So It just makes shame on them. Their coach is going to get fired at some point in this offseason. But shout him out. He's just, didn't have the best experience there last year, and always gives his all, and has been a good big man for him. And another thing I wanted to talk about is Kenyon Davis. I like Kenyon Davis, and he's not put up a bunch of points. He's a freshman starting, but he's got potential if they can keep him at the Citadel. He's athletic, got good size, can score it. I'm excited to see what he does. He does it as he continues to grow with Ed Conroy, who's, I think, solidified himself as a good coach at this point. He left the Citadel after a little stint, but he's good, and everyone knows it. And because that Citadel team this offseason should not have been, they're 1-7 now in SoCon play, but they shouldn't be in every game like they are. And especially this offseason, they should have not had any chance of being, they were almost looking like, who's going to be VMI or the Citadel that's better. And they've made it out.
It's not even close.
Yeah, not even close.
Yeah, I just hate watching ETSU, to be 100% honest. Watch it, every game with them is just a rock fight. I tweeted when they played Mercer that I'm just not interested in watching them just try to club somebody to death. The offense is just brutal. They're the ball movement's not there. Ebi Asamoah just never swings the rock. They are solid defensively, but I kind of feel the complete opposite about the Citadel. Is like Citadel struggled to score tonight, but it kind of just seems like they had a cold night. Like they got dudes that can score. Like Elijah Morgan and Madison Durr can both score like with ease a lot of the time. So, I mean, that's a team that just took Furman to overtime. So, like, I'm a little more confident maybe in the Citadel than I am in ETSU because ETSU's offense is just not going to keep pace. Like, it may be closer to VMI than the rest of the SoCon.
Well, here's the thing. The Citadel plays like that every game, and that's about as good as they can get. ETSU plays like that every game, and they're not even close to their ceiling. It just feels like they underachieve so much, and that's why they win a bunch of these games against kind of the bottom tier teams, is because ETSU should be a lot better than all
They
these
have more
guys.
talent,
And I think
exactly.
I'm not gonna say like it's a Brooks Savage problem. It's year one, but I think some of those guys, maybe there needs to be more role definition or buy-in to team aspect of basketball. I don't know. I mean, like Ebi Asamoah is nice and, can really get going, can really score it. But at the same time, like what did he have tonight? I'm gonna pull it up. He had 17 points on 6 for 19 shooting, and I know he came out of the half fairly hot or something.
He
Something
surprisingly
like
had
that.
2 assists.
But yeah, he only takes tough shots. Kamari Peterson can't really slow down ever. He just kind of, and he did have a big bucket there that ended up being the game winning bucket. And that's a blessing and a curse how he plays a little bit, where he just goes head down, can take contact and that body control, finish layups. He has turnover problems at times. Jaden Seymour's great, but Jaden Seymour shouldn't be your number one scoring option, in my opinion. Like, he's a great player, and I think Jaden Seymour would start at pretty much every school in the SoCon, obviously, but I don't know that he's like some offensive.
Right.
I don't even know how to explain it, but yeah, like he should be one of your best players, but probably not the guy your offense is running through. Just because that's not his style of play. He's just a good winning player, and he's being asked to do so much. They're just a weird team, and they just don't make. Oh, I keep seeing ETSU fans like a win is a win. They say that every night, which it is, but it can't be fun to watch it all the time. It's not fun for me watching it, and I have no rooting interest for either team. I just watch it, and I feel like I just feel like they could accomplish so much more, even though they have won some games here recently.
Yeah, it's weird to think that like at the beginning of the year, I never saw Jaden Seymour being like a volume 3-point shooter. He was 5 for 12 from the field tonight and 0 of 6 from 3.
He's just being asked to do
He was 5 of 6 from inside the arc. Like that's your game. I don't know why he's shooting 6 threes.
Yeah, that's the thing with him, because it almost sounds like we're sliding him, and we're not. Like that's just not. He's being asked to do more than what he should be, because he should be like a star defensive player, slasher, just being real athletic,
Exactly.
mid-range guy. But he's being, for them to be in games, like he's having to take shots every possession, and that's not, he's a star on the defensive end and a guy that can, out athlete guys and impose his will at times. They're just a weird situation. But also, let me say one thing: the one guy I like Jaden Parker. Jaden Parker is one guy that does buy into winning. I like him. I have that written down. That's the only reason I want to mention that. I think he is a good big and a really good guy to build upon with him and keep him there, because I can tell with him, he knows what his role is, and he's not overly trying, to get his out there. And I've seen ETSU fans recently wanting this big that's in the transfer portal, forgetting his name. You got Seymour and Parker, you're fine. I don't think you need to add somebody else. Obviously depth bigs and whatnot, but I think that's a good 4 or 5 combo for next few years. I think that's one of the top in the SoCon.
Yeah, poor Jaden Parker is just matched up every night with at the Alex Williams and McCall Brown Joneses and Sam Alexis.
Exactly.
Like he never gets to have a good time because he always is probably guarding one of the team's 1 or 2 best players.
Exactly. Last result of the night, Mercer took down VMI in the toilet bowl of the SoCon, 90-69. Jalen McCurry with
30 ball.
A fake 30 ball. Just kidding. Jalen McCurry with a 30 ball, 7 rebounds. Jalen McCurry's a good player. He just wants kind of like Jaden Seymour. He's asked to do too much for a team. He should be a solid player for another team.
Yeah, but at the same time, he comes off the bench. I don't understand. Like
I don't know why that happens now. I
he's
wish I watched
actually.
more Mercer basketball to understand.
I think we've mentioned this before. He's third in the country in usage rate, higher than Vontarius Woolbright, and he comes off the bench. I don't know how those two things are true at the same time.
Yeah, and he's gonna give you unlimited mid-range floaters to mid-range left-hand floater to death and just jump over you. That's the Jalen McCurry game plan. He got 50 or 30 on VMI. Tayshaun Jackson had 15 and 15. Not a whole lot to talk about that game. Just Mercer's not having a great year. VMI is VMI. You know, we'll shout out guys when they have performances, but they doesn't happen a whole lot because it's just a tough situation. We'll preview tomorrow's game, which also could end up being the best game of the weekend, depending on how it goes. UNCG heads to Furman. That's tomorrow at 2 Eastern. Matt, you got thoughts on that? You know, what are your predictions for that game? What do you think's going to happen? What do you want to see from that one?
Yeah, obviously we both picked Furman, which we both picked Chat, and that didn't go very well, so we'll see. But Furman at home, to me, is just a different animal. Like, you see the energy in Timmons Arena, like, every time they're in there, and they just look like they have a different kind of vibe to them. They come out and shoot the ball well when, in reality, they're second to last in the conference and three-point percentage above ETSU. You know, UNC Greensboro won that first matchup in the first game of Southern Conference play when Furman was kind of a shell of itself. They didn't have Pegues or Foster at the time. So, you know, they have those guys back now, and we'll see how Greensboro kind of handles them. But I just don't know who's going to get the most minutes on Mikal Brown-Jones. It's probably going to be Alex Williams, I would say, just because,
I hope it is.
you know, he's both tall enough and strong enough. You know, Heen and Cooper Bowser may be a little too weak to guard Brown-Jones, and Marcus Foster is probably just a little too short. So I'm hoping it's Alex Williams just for the sake of Mikal Brown-Jones not having another 30-piece. But it's going to be interesting to see who the secondary guy is when Williams is off the floor and how they handle Brown-Jones most of the day.
Yeah, I want to say a prayer for the refs tomorrow.
Oh, Lord.
Whoever is watching Mikal Brown-Jones and Alex Williams bang down low on the first few plays, I hope that things don't escalate because they might have to box at midcourt after a few possessions. They might just get to it and get a couple flagrants. That's going to be that's two like physical dudes that both like just try to overpower you, going at each other. It's like what's it called? Unstoppable force versus immovable object. That's Alex Williams versus Mikal Brown-Jones. I've used that phrase a lot lately because I used the opposite of it the other day for a horrible college basketball game. But that's what that is. That's just two dogs going at each other. I hope Furman can ease my confusion. Like they were down how much were they down to the Citadel on Wednesday just randomly? And they
Like
came back and
15,
won that.
like
But
that.
once again, the Citadel should not be beating Furman by that much. And the crowd was awesome at that game. They had a lot of the students there. And obviously, you know, the military schools when they get all the troops there, and it's awesome, those environments. But still,
it looks terrifying, honestly.
yeah, it really is. That's one of the coolest environments when things like that happen. But at the same
I
time,
agree. Mm-hmm.
Furman's so much more talented than the Citadel that it shouldn't be a game in those situations still. So I hope they can ease some of my concerns, whatnot. And one more thing we didn't talk about with Furman, JP Pegues, you know, I feel like I'm just going to continue this year going to my tweet, like JP Pegues 3 in the clutch. It's the most automatic shot of all time. Like what a shot versus the Citadel. That's the most odd, like it goes in every time. It's getting ridiculous. Yeah. And the thing is too, like, he did that in high school too. Like growing up in Nashville, I remember when seeing the videos when he was at Hillsboro and he hit a big shot to send them to like the state tournament or something like that, or win the region championship. I don't remember what it was, but he did that. And then he gets a shot. You know, he wasn't getting shots with Bothwell and Slauson, but he just happened to get one against Virginia. Bang. He gets one against Tulane. Bang. Now Citadel. He hit one. What was the other one the other day? I'm totally
Western Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's getting hilarious at this point.
And
He hits every single big shot.
Other than Virginia, they're not catch and shoot either. They're like him breaking down a guy and hitting
you
like
know
a
what's
sidestep
happening,
or
too.
something. Mm-hmm.
You
know what
know
they're
what's
trying to
happening.
do.
He's dribbling, and I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, oh, here comes a step back three. Here comes. I think that's actually now you're at Western Carolina. I think I was sitting there watching the game, posted up, and he's dribbling. I'm like, he's taking a three here. He's clearly going to take a step back three, and he still does it. And I feel like the defender has to know too, and it just doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, it's getting funny at this point. There's not a whole lot to say about that. It's just funny that he just hits every single three in the clutch.
Crazy.
Then Marcus Foster, let me say this too. I'm still disappointed in Marcus Foster so far this year. And that's like a funny thing to say because he's probably averaging like 18 something points like that. But every time I watch him, I feel like he misses shots he shouldn't miss. And I feel like there's so much more on the table. Like he hasn't reached his ceiling at all. And I say disappointed in that, like, he's still an all league player, but I feel like he could be like a player of the year level player. And he's not, you know, I wonder what his standards are. Like if he feels like he hasn't had, you know, obviously he's having a good year, but if he feels the same way as me, or if Bob Ritchie feels the same way as me, and maybe this is just my hope. Like I have a like infatuation with like wings that can do, you know, can defend, can score three levels. Like that's what runs the NBA. But I always love finding, you know, when Jalen Slauson was like that, and I think Jalen Slauson is more of a big, but I've been saying Jalen Slauson was a potential NBA player for like 2 years before, you know, he got drafted. Like guys like that, I just enjoy watching 3-and-D wings. That's what they would be in the NBA. And I've always loved Foster's game and thought he could be so good. And I just feel like he just can get more. And that's the scary thing maybe about Furman. Like we talk about Samford with Marshall, you know, I don't feel like Foster's played his best basketball this year. I feel like Alex Williams has at times. JP McGee's could play more consistent, but I feel like McGee's has his time. And Foster's putting up good numbers, but I feel like he's got another ceiling he can reach, another level he can reach. So I'm interested to see how they figure things out as as SoCon play finishes up.
Yeah, Foster before the injury was great. If you remember that tournament they played at Coastal Carolina, he had like 30, 30, and 25. Those were his 3 games in that one. So if he can get back to that, of course Furman can be scary. A key to this game to me, we talked about, you know, Alex Williams guarding Brown Jones. Brown Jones is shooting 50% from 3 this year still, and he's 0 of 5 in his last 2. So if, you know, maybe he just decides he doesn't want to, you know, bang down there with Alex Williams and they, you know, start to pop him in the pick and roll, if he can hit, you know, 2, 3, 4 threes like that, that could be a big boost for them. And then, you know, we haven't even mentioned the guards, like how PJ Smith and Pegues and Carter Witt are going to match up with the Langley twins is going to be a big piece to how this game plays out.
Yeah, I think the Langley twins have more they can give too. I don't feel like they've played as well as they can recently. We haven't talked a ton about UNCG and all this. I think they got more than they can give, and I think
Keyshawn
Donovan
especially.
Atwell's played better recently. But yeah, I think UNCG's biggest problem is they've become too reliant on Brown Jones to have a big game right now, and they're barely. They barely snuck out a win against VMI the other day. Lost to Mercer the other day. They got to get more from everyone else, and Brown Jones certainly could have been a little better in a few of those games, but still, they've got to, you know, Keyshawn Langley's got to be the all-conference player that we thought he was coming into the year. You know, Kobe Langley's got to give, you know, the offensive production that we thought, you know, that we've seen at times, maybe not thought, but that we've seen him give at times, and Donovan Atwell's got to keep knocking down threes. So yeah, I would like to see that. I think that's where their problems lie, is the others, you know, and by the others, I just mean everyone but MDJ. And that's it for the episode, I guess. Not a whole lot more. It's successful SoCon Saturday. I like that. I took that from
I
everybody.
have
Okay,
one
yeah,
more
go ahead.
thing. Sorry, two more things actually. I do want to point out that the Ingles game of the week was Mercer VMI. I don't know how that lined up or anything like that, but that made me laugh. And
That's the
then
most participation award ever.
everybody gets one. And then my highlight of the night that I don't know how I didn't mention this when we were talking about Wofford and Western Carolina. After Kyler Filowich forced Wilbright into the fadeaway at the end of overtime, he was like walking down the court screaming at the Western Carolina bench saying, "I'm like that." And the
Yeah,
camera
I
like
saw that.
zoomed in on him screaming that. I thought it was the funniest thing ever. And
That's
then
the Kyler Filowich.
The Western Carolina bench just looked like they wanted to just mob him. It was hilarious.
He does that every time Wofford wins a big game. He has some crazy reaction. He is an emotional dude. Like he just goes crazy at the end
I
of those
remember
games.
when he blocked Kamari Peterson at the end of the ETSU game. Blocked Kamari Peterson. He went crazy. I love that guy.
Yeah, no, he's a funny dude, and he's also looks about like he's 40 years old somehow. He's gone through some
That's what
stress
we
in his
say.
life, dude. He looks way older than he is. He's a funny dude, funny player. All right, now that's it that we got for the episode. Good SoCon Saturday. I don't even know. I guess that's a thing. I've seen it all over Twitter. SoCon Saturdays. I like it, so I'm going to use it. Same with actually one more shout out Blaine Woodruff, the Chattanooga golf coach. He tweeted at me the other day because Vontarius Woolbright got a great whistle against Chattanooga the other day, and we haven't even talked about that. But it was pretty. He very much gets a star whistle, and he was mad. He called Woolbright SoCon LeBron. So I like that too. That rolls down
It
really well.
does.
So Woolbright is SoCon LeBron. We just finished up another SoCon Saturday, and that's it. We'll see you guys in the next one. As always, like, comment, subscribe, rate us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whatever you're listening to. Interact with us on Twitter, YouTube comments, all that stuff. We really enjoy it. So we appreciate everyone who keeps listening.